achieved.
You know, there's a lot of floating around about the pandemic and what positives have come out of it. Of course, people talking about the fact that we, as a result, no disrespect to Gilbert Burns, and absolutely want to make sure, hopefully, he's getting better ASAP. But the pandemic did cost us Khabib versus Ferguson, but we're getting Usman Masvidal, which is awesome. Now, another positive out of the pandemic I'm hoping to see is that the UFC recognizes that with the added factor of COVID-19 and the added implications and the safety measures that must be taken and the tests that must be passed through, they can ill afford to put together a weak card on the strength of only a couple of fights. And this next UFC Fight Island event, which we'll be breaking down today, has kind of been, had a couple issues with that. Knowing that there are going to be fighters who might be perfectly healthy other than the fact they test positive for COVID, even if they're asymptomatic, and they're pulled from the card. We saw Pedro Munoz pulled out. We saw the Rodriguez-Esparza fight come off, and suddenly this card was very, very thin, and at this point they have not found a replacement to fight Frankie Iger. I don't think they're going to. If they do, I will update it on my website. But thankfully them, Jimmie Rivera and Cody Stamann agreed to step up and fight 145 pounds as kind of a legitimate co-main event. But yeah, it's definitely something they'll have to do. They'll have to recognize they got to make sure they have enough high-quality fights on the card that they can stand to lose 2, 3, or even 4 matchups and still put forth a pretty decent product. Because to be honest with you, looking at this card, it's going to be interesting. There's some fun fights on there, but we don't have a lot of big time name value. Like looking through it, it's like Tim Elliott versus Ryan Benoit. Lerone Murphy against Ricardo Ramos. Those are some of the only big names, not big names, but recognizable names that are going head to head after you get through the initial handful of fights on the main card. Now, could they come through with Frankie Iger versus Aljamain Sterling? They absolutely could. I think it's a stupid move because Sterling, I think, is lined up for a title fight and could fight for the title with the winner of Aldo Jan not having been decided by the filming of this. But, I don't think beating Iger gets him anywhere, and it knocks kind of Iger back a step. Where if Iger beats him, I don't know if Iger necessarily jumps right into the title picture, or at least should, on the strength of one win, even though Aldo is in the title fight on the strength of one loss. Either way, the UFC needs to be very mindful of what's happening and pump up their cards to make sure they don't wind up with cards that are just absolutely wrecked by COVID-19, especially with what's going on in the United States. Hopefully things continue or start to improve. Nonetheless, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Island event, also known as UFC on ESPN 13. It will go down on Wednesday, the 15th, July 15th, and transpire from Yas Island, UFC Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. As of right now, I'm going to break down 4 main card fights for you. All of my preliminary picks and any other fights on the main card that I actually don't cover today will be available on my website, kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. As of recording this, UFC 251 is not transpired yet, so we don't know how that's going to go down. It looks like a fantastic card. Super excited. 13 awesome fights. My bet packs are posted. We're fully loaded, hoping to pull in some big-time profit as we move forward. And, on that note, I've been rambling a lot, so let's get to our first main card prediction. The opening fight of the main card goes down in the UFC's featherweight division as the 18-3-1 Chris Fishgold takes on the 15-4-0 Jared Gordon. Currently, Jared Gordon, the slight minus 138 favorite. Chris Fishgold, the plus 110 underdog. Now, these fighters could be potentially facing their walking papers with a loss here, but at the same time, they tend to have all-action styles. It's, do or die, kill or be killed, and that might save them even if they lose this match or if they put on a good performance. Fishgold comes in this fight 1-2 in the UFC. He's been finished in both of his defeats. Of course, losing to Calvin Kattar who's fighting in the main event. He lost to him on short notice. He was submitted by Amir Khan, who's fighting at the UFC pay-per-view, and he has a submission win over Daniel Tamor in his debut. For Gordon, he won back-to-back fights to start his UFC run, fighting at featherweight, defeating Hakron Diaz most notably, and then kind of fell off the table when he moved to lightweight. 1-3 since that contest. Lost to Diego Ferreira, lost to Joaquim Silva, and lost to Charles Alvear de Bronx. A couple of those good names in there. Ferreira and de Bronx doing big things right now, so really no shame in losing those fights. Physically, Gordon 1 inch taller, they'll have the same reach. Fishy is the younger fighter by 4 years. And again, when you look at Gordon, he started 2-0 at featherweight, and his coach kind of said, I don't like you cutting all that weight, and we're going to go up to lightweight and see how that goes. He's fought there 4 times. He's gone 1-3 in the UFC, and it kind of all indications are he's moving back down. I don't know. Most fighters during this pandemic and these difficult scenarios are moving up a weight class just to avoid the cut. Him coming back down to featherweight suggests to me he's coming back to readdress the possibility that that's a better weight class for him. He's also faced better competition at lightweight, which is worth noting. So we'll see, if the move back down does equate to just a better spot overall. Now look at Fishgold first. 13 wins by submission, only 2 knockouts, which is noteworthy. We'll talk about that momentarily. And he's 3-1 on the scorecards. When he fought Daniel Tamor, he came out looking for takedowns very early on. He ended up picking up 5 in total, and he showcased a very good takedown game. He's good at driving his opponents into the cage and just dragging them down. He's pretty powerful overall, built fairly physical. And he's one of these guys that he will just latch onto a single leg, and just keep driving and clinching and pushing you down and turn that corner until he gets you on your backside. Once on the mat, very good at controlling, grapevining the leg. Almost Khabib style, grapevining the leg, controlling that wrist, and really working towards a dominant position. But at the same time, if he sees an opportunity to go for submission, he seems to go all in. And his numbers suggest, obviously, when he goes for submissions, he commits them, he can pick them up. But we also saw him lose position a number of occasions, and that's something you cannot afford to do at this level, is routinely give up position and wind up on your back, because that's not going to equate to success. Against Tamor, he jumped his back and had a good success for a moment, but then lost that position, got put on his back, and again, that just isn't an ideal scenario at this level of competition. Eventually, in that fight, he got to Timur's back, got the rear naked choke, and submitted him in the second round, but it's worth noting Tamor in his career only outside of the first round 4 times, and he's 1-3, so he's a guy who's prone to losing those fights. On the feet, Fishgold's got some decent pop in his hands, but again, not big knockout numbers, a little bit stationary, and again, the majority of his offense is built around him closing the distance and looking for takedowns. Now, when you look at Jared Gordon, his takedown defense has been pretty solid. He's also shown the ability to go offensive with his takedowns, especially over his 2 UFC featherweight bouts, where he's landed 6 takedowns and did so against some pretty tight guys. Like Hakron Diaz was making some noise during his UFC tenure, and then ultimately kind of flamed out. But Gordon put up a good fight against him and just definitely showed what he's capable of in this division. When you do get in on Gordon's hips and get him on the mat, he's very difficult to take down. He keeps working. He was getting back up every time Dan Moore took him down, his only win at lightweight. And he kept getting up and he put himself in some good positions, or ultimately got back to his feet and got out of there and reset. Really like that. Good at defending submissions and getting on top, which is something that really could show up against Fishgold, again, who I said likes to go for those submissions, and if he doesn't get them, they can be problematic. I would think Gordon in this fight will most likely want to keep it standing at least early on. He keeps a good pace and pressure, forces opponents to work at a pace that is more demanding than when they're used to. And when you're able to do that, you can really wear guys down and take them out of their comfort zone. Now, at lightweight, the problem is he takes some damage doing that. And at lightweight, that cost him. Maybe he wasn't quite as durable against the heavier men. He's got 3 losses by knockout in the UFC, 4 overall, which tells us his chin might not be what it needs to be. But then again, at featherweight, that could be a different story. Against smaller men, he might have the ability to absorb that punishment and not go down. Overall, in this fight, Gordon should have the edge in volume, pace, and cardio. He should also have the general striking advantage. The concern here is that Fishgold, sits down at a punch and catches him moving in and could knock him out, even though he only has those 2 knockout wins. But that has not been Fishgold's strength. More likely is that Fishgold hurts him and then maybe can latch on to a submission against a stunned Jared Gordon on the mat. I think Fishgold is willing to engage him in that high-paced fight. And that's going to be a problem. He'll start to slow down. He'll go for those submissions that cost him position. Gordon will just keep getting up, keep getting out of those spots, and keep working on him. I think Gordon eventually catches him with a combination or wears him down with volume and gets him out of there. But my prediction is Jared Gordon to defeat Chris Fishgold by TKO. Our second main card fight comes to us in the UFC's welterweight division as the returning Abdul Razak Alhassan, 10-1. Takes on the debuting 9-1 Mounir Lazzez. And again, I've seen this said various ways. Same with Alhassan. I've seen him pronounced Alhassan. I've seen it pronounced Alhassan. So we will go with these 2 pronunciations. Again, I apologize if I'm getting them wrong. So for Alhassan, he comes into this matchup. The betting odds also important. Alhassan, the current favorite at -275. Lazzez at +225 as the debuting underdog. Now, Alhassan is 4-1 in the UFC. And he has a knockout victory in under a minute of the very vaunted, very durable, very, dynamic Nico Price. Impressive. He also has 2 stoppages wins over Sabah Hamasi. His only loss in the UFC, a split decision loss to Omari Akhmedov. So very, solid run for this guy. For Lazzez, he comes in this matchup 9-1 as a pro. Turned pro in 2012, not very active between 2015 and now, but he started to pick it up again, and he's looked very good. Lazzez will be the younger fighter by 2 years, and he's 3 inches taller than Alhassan. I don't have a reach for this matchup. Now, looking at Razak first, he's been out of action for 2 years. He's returned after being found not guilty after a rape allegations were leveled against him, which is good, obviously. If he's innocent and back in the action, that's fantastic. Obviously, we look at the layoff from an MMA prediction standpoint and say, how does that affect him? I don't know. It's hard to say. We don't know how much training he's been doing, how much distraction he's had to deal with, but he's back in action nonetheless. Now, all 10 of his wins as a professional have come by knockout, all in the first round, 4 in the UFC, 2 of which came in the opening 60 seconds. The guy has absolute dynamite in his hands. His only loss, as we previously mentioned, came against the Russian Omari Akhmedov, who pushed him beyond round 1, used takedowns, wore him out, and got a split decision. It was one of those grueling, grinds of a fight, and Alhassan wasn't able to stay vertical long enough to play his offense, but still nearly got the victory nonetheless. Now, his win over Price was massive, and that's a fight and a victory that should have elevated him into some bigger fights. But that layoff comes in, and it really derails him. So I would say he's the type of fighter who has a win here, and he gets himself pushed back into, especially an impressive win, gets himself pushed back into some big opportunities. The guy throws hard low kicks, just devastating low leg kicks to that lead leg. He's got a good left jab, and he follows with that massively powerful right hand. He stopped Homasi with a long-range uppercut. It was so impressive. The second time he put him down, just catching him from distance and just unconscious. Boom, gone. He covers distance very well. He really explodes into his combinations. He will get a little bit wild when he's dragged into a firefight, and that he could be countered down the middle. But again, it's so difficult. As we saw with Nico Price, who's a guy who likes to brawl, Price just simply got overwhelmed and couldn't deal with it and got put down, which was really, almost hard to watch as a Nico Price fan. But nonetheless, it was a great performance by Alhassan. Now, looking at Lazzez in this matchup, 8 of his 9 wins have come by knockout. So you see why they've paired these two guys together. 5 in round 1. He's 4-1 outside of the first round, though. And his only loss, a 5-round decision loss. So that against, and it's worth noting. You look at the last 3 guys he's fought. Sorry, let's get to this. Last 3 guys he's fought, combined record of 18-12. Not great, all above 500, not terrible. His only career loss, though, to Eldar Eldarov, who is 12-1 for his career, and his only loss was against the reigning lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, who he fought in his second pro fight. Khabib at the time was 5-0. So that tells you that this guy, he's facing decent competition. He's losing to some good quality competition, or at least lost one fight, and he's beating the rest. So this will be a nice step up for him. Now, that being said, I saw a couple things I didn't like. In his last fight, he was offered a glove touch, said, yeah, we'll touch. They touched gloves, and essentially, while their hands were still connected, he landed a low kick on a fighter who kind of turned and was like, are you serious? I know it's protect yourselves at all time, but still there seems to be that glove touch, separate, and then fight, not glove touch, and then maintain that distance and pound away. But then at the end of the fight, when he knocked his opponent out, and again, I didn't get a huge look into the bad blood if there was any, but when he knocked his opponent out, he was still landing shots, and Mark Goddard, a very good referee, had to pull him off, and it took a little extra effort to get him away from that situation and pull him out of there. So it's like, are we dealing with a little bit of a hothead here, or a guy who gets emotionally invested in fights? I don't know. When he fights, he's an excellent striker, very good striker, patient striker. He's got some nice back leg body high and low kicks, very good techniques there. He has good timing on his stepping knee. He'll come right up the middle. He really likes to throw that. He throws decent combination with head movement, leading with a left jab. He'll double it up. He'll work the body. His combinations, his counter combinations as an opponent moves in are also very effective. I like his finishing instincts. He'll step in and throw good combinations when he thinks his opponent's rocked and gets them out of there. And he doesn't just throw wild haymakers. He'll throw punches, kicks, knees. Everything works together as opponent falters and succumbs to the overwhelming offense he puts forth. Defensively, he moves away under pressure fairly well, but he can be hit. And I saw some opponents who aren't overly great strikers, just kind of throwing stuff at him, and some of it was connecting. If he closes the distance, or his opponent stretches out their combinations and really goes beyond that initial foray, they're going to have success landing him, and that could be problematic against Alhassan. He did show some inclination to clinch or look for takedowns, but I don't think he's going to look for that here, and if he does, I don't think he's going to find much success. Alhassan with a bit of a judo background, which should help him there. There is some concern regarding Alhassan's layoff. That certainly is a bit of an issue, and especially for a fighter that's inclined for quick fights. But again, we're not sure how Lazzez is going to compete here at this level. He's taking a fairly big step up in competition against a very dangerous fighter, and I raise questions. Can he keep him back? Does he have enough pop to punish him and back him off? I think Alhassan's power striking barrages are going to be difficult for Lazzez to deal with, especially with limited wrestling. There's no threat of a double leg coming through or a takedown if Alhassan closes distance, too mindlessly. Alhassan backs him up, I think limits his movement along the cage and smashes him with big combinations. And I think that's going to be, when you get the taller, longer fighter back up against the cage, I think that'll be key. And my prediction is Abdul, Razak, Alhassan to defeat Mounir, Lazzez by knockout, not TKO, KO. In a fight that now stands to be the co-main event of the evening, two very good bantamweights will go head-to-head in a featherweight matchup as the 22-4 Jimmie Rivera takes on the 19-2-1 Cody Stamann. Now, current underdog is Stamann at plus 125. Jimmie Rivera, the return, at minus 150. Now, interestingly enough, Pedro Munoz pulled out of the Frankie Edgar co-main event. Supposed to be Edgar's debut at 135. Both Rivera and Stamann stepped up, said, "Hey, I want to make that fight. I want to take that opportunity to fight Frankie Edgar." And I think the UFC recognized that getting Edgar an opponent on short notice could be difficult. Especially that if he stopped cutting weight or had any other issues or complications once the Munoz fight was off. So instead, they said to Rivera and Stamann, "Hey, we need another big fight for this card. Do you guys want to fight?" I don't know if it was the UFC or them that suggested 145, but that's where we're gonna have this fight. And it's a big fight for it's 145, but it's still a big fight in the bantamweight division for all intents and purposes. Now, Cody Stamann comes in this rolling. He beat Kelleher last time, but he had that very controversial draw against Yadong that I thought he won, even though I had Yadong to win that fight. He beat Alejandro Perez. He's 5-1-1 in the UFC, and this is, again, a big matchup for him. He's only lost to Aljamain Sterling. Now, for Rivera, he's floundering a bit. He's in a different spot. He started his UFC tenure 5-0. That capped off a 20-fight win streak. Super impressive. The guy had opportunity written all over him, and then he walked into Marlon Moraes, got knocked out. Then he lost to Aljamain Sterling and Petro Yan. So you see the quality of competition it takes to put this guy down. He's 1-3 in his last 4. His only win coming over John Dodson. So again, struggling a little bit. Now for Stamann, he fought at 145 pounds against Kelleher and looked fantastic. He's 2 inches taller than Rivera. Rivera will actually have a 4-inch reach advantage, and they are roughly the same age. Now for Jimmie Rivera, the guy's been out of action for a year. Conversely, Cody Stamann's fought twice in that span, and he fought Kelleher just a month ago. He should be much looser in a better spot here physically than Rivera, who might come in a little bit tight for the short notice fight. And again, short notice fight for both guys, taking the fight on 6 days. It's not ideal, but hey, it's a great opportunity. Now, you look at Cody Stamann. He lost to Aljamain Sterling in a very big test, and he looked okay, but ultimately he got finished. Other than that, though, he's faced and beat pretty much every other non-ranked opponent since he's beaten everybody else he's come into collision with and looked good. When you look at Jimmie Rivera, the guy came out and he got some big names under his belt. The aforementioned Pedro Munoz, Yuri Alcantara, who's looking good, Uriah Faber, Thomas Almeida, all guys who, at one point in time were definitely considered to be contenders. Then he ran into the top end of the division and struggled. And so that's where he is. Stamann has had one real close encounter at the top end of the division. Rivera has fought multiple big-end opponents, big high-caliber opponents, and had a little bit of struggle. From the confidence standpoint, that definitely favors Cody Stamann. And it's a huge opportunity, especially in short notice bouts. He's coming off a win. He looked fantastic. He's had a couple of wins. Rivera is one of these fighters right now at 1-3. Any backstep, any struggle, suddenly it starts to unravel for him mentally, where Stamann is kind of saying, hey, I'm invincible, but he's certainly looking well. Now, when you look at Cody Stamann, he benefited tremendously from not cutting to 135. And that should be the case here again against another 135er, because he noted he's too short to fight at 145. But when he puts on that extra 10 pounds and fights another guy who's not going to have those physical advantages over the traditional 145er, it's a good spot for him. Stamann's volume looked good. He's very powerful. He pressured Kelleher throughout the fight. His jab looks very sharp. He moves well. He throws some nice front leg kicks, which is something you don't traditionally see from that wrestle boxer type guy that he kind of represents. Overall, he's been relatively diverse in his offense. I haven't been the biggest Cody Stamann fan in a while, but I really like what I saw out of him against Kelleher, and he's come a long way. He took Kelleher down on multiple occasions. He's actually taken down 5 of his 7 opponents. He had 3 against Aljamain Sterling, which is no easy feat. He had 5 against Song Yadong, which, again, a fight I felt he won. Even with the point not coming off Yadong, I thought Stamann should have won that hands down. It would have been a shame if he would have lost it. He didn't slow down in either of those fights, which has been a concern for him. He was under attack. He remained composed. And again, going back to 145, not making that draining cut, it seemed to benefit him. Now, when you look at Jimmie Rivera, the guy's got some pop in his hands, but he's not known for his knockouts. Just 4 wins by knockout in 26 fights. Took out Marcus Brimage in his debut. Hasn't really shown that knockout power since. When he was winning and having success, he was blending together good defense and solid offense. By limiting his opponent's, output and significance landing, it magnified his offensive output, which was solid. He's got good low kicks. He slides in the range and throws solid combinations. He needs to find his distance early and routinely, which is something that if he can't, it's a major, major concern. He landed more strikes against Petr Yan in that matchup, but he got dropped twice, which cost him. And he got KO'd by Marlon Moraes, which is something that tells you, maybe his chin's not amazing, especially if you get against a heavy hitter who can catch him coming forward. And when he fought Aljamain Sterling, we talked about, he just couldn't find the range, and he just struggled. He looked defeated at times. He just couldn't find a striking range where he was comfortable with, and it just did not work out for him. It was not a good performance. Now, when he fought John Dodson, Dodson's so quick and coming in, and Rivera was looking to counter and finding success. But at the same time, that can be an issue if you can't find your range, can't land your counters, can't get a guy to come in and attack you and engage you at a rate you want to fire back and land enough in the process. Rivera will work in some takedowns when needed, but he's not a big volume guy. Conversely, he's got good takedown defense. Really hasn't been tested a lot. Jan landed 1 takedown against him. That could be different here. When I look at these two fighters, Stamann is a better version of Jimmie Rivera at this point in time, especially when they fight at 145. At 135, Rivera would have the edge in cardio as far as I'm concerned. He might be able to push him, get him to slow down, and just outwork him, especially in rounds 2 and 3, which would be decisive rounds. But I think Stamann has a better chance of handling this pace at 145 pounds. I think his ability to just not cut, not drain himself, he looks good. Kelleher put a good pace on him, and Stamann was right there the entire time landing good shots. And I don't know if Kelleher's more durable than Jimmie Rivera. We'll have to wait and see. I think Stamann overall is going to throw more effective volume, but more so he does it more consistently throughout the fight, and he's got more pop in his hands. He's not going to look to flurry with multiple combinations. He'll be working that jab, throwing those kicks, and he's picking away at Rivera more consistently, and that makes it difficult for Jimmie to get going. Stamann could also take Rivera down. I think Stamann has the edge in wrestling. I think he'll avoid getting taken down overall. It's a key aspect of the fight nonetheless. Even if Rivera can't find takedowns, and Stamann doesn't opt for takedowns, at least it forces a striking battle, which I like Stamann's chances in that fight. I think ultimately Stamann lands more strikes, more impactful offense, and with Rivera's success diminishing as the fight goes, especially as those kicks and those jabs start to pile up, and my prediction is Cody Stamann to defeat Jimmie Rivera by decision. And we move now to the main event of the evening. For that, we're in the UFC's featherweight division as the 21-4 Calvin Kattar takes on the 14-2-0 Dan Ige in an absolutely fantastic matchup. Currently, the odds makers have set. They have Calvin Kattar as the minus 275 favorite, Ige the return at plus 225. Now, this is a huge fight for both men. Absolutely massive fight. Both guys are looking for that opportunity to take the next big step up in a stacked featherweight division and to continue to contend and to pursue a shot at the title. Now, you look at Kattar, he TKO'd Jeremy Stephens, just obliterated him so impressively. He's also stopped Ricardo Lamas, Shane Burgos. He has a decision win over Andre Fili. That's an impressive list of guys. The only two guys in the UFC that beat him, Zabit Magomed-Shapirov, so very impressive opponent there, and Renato Moicano very early in Kattar's run. And Kattar seems like he's this guy who's always improving. For Ige, he lost his debut to Julio Arce. Since then, he's been on a roll. 6 wins overall, but he's had back-to-back split decision victories over Mirsad Bektic and Edson Barboza. And a lot of people feel that Barboza fight he might have lost. It was very close nonetheless. I rewatched it a couple of times. I thought Barboza edged him out. Maybe not as big a robbery as I initially thought, but ultimately I thought Barboza should have got the nod there. Physically, Kattar, 4 inches taller. He'll have a 1-inch reach advantage. Ige is the younger fighter by 3 years. And as I said, both these guys are moving up the ranks, but they also appear to be just improving and getting better and just taking each next step very effectively and putting forth solid efforts. And even when Kattar's lost fights, he seems to rebound nicely and come back better. Now, overall, you look at, you'd say Kattar's probably fought better competition. The losses to Zabit and Moicano certainly indicate that. But beating Ricardo Lamas and Jeremy Stephens and Shane Burgos and Andre Fili definitively, those are very impressive performances. For Ige, he beat Mirsad Bektic, who was a blue chip prospect at one point. I don't think so anymore. I feel like Bektic's kind of backsliding and might have hit his ceiling. It was close. I thought Ige got the win. Then he took on Barboza, who was debuting in the division. Again, I thought Barboza got the win. But it just wasn't it was a gutty performance by Ige, but it wasn't a definitive dominant performance. And then you go beyond those matchups and you say, where was his clearest, was it Kevin Aguilar? Was it Danny Henry who's fighting on the card, UFC 251? Were those his best wins? And they're not anything comparable to what Kattar has put forth. Now, that being said, when you look at the two, I think Ige's the more well-rounded fighter. He's got good striking. He's got some power in his hands. He's got a very sound grappling game. He's tough. He's got good cardio. He's got a lot of intangibles. For Kattar, though, he offers the most dangerous skill set in this matchup with his boxing and knockout power. 11 wins by knockout and just putting down some guys that traditionally don't always get, are pretty tough to put down. And with Kattar, I both like and dislike the way he paces himself early on in matchups. He will pace himself, trying to figure out the range and timing his opponent. Against Jeremy Stephens, he was under fire. And in a 3-round fight, that's, can be problematic. That means you got to be on for the last 2 rounds. If you can't get the finish, you got to go out and get those 2 rounds. In a 5-round fight, that might work better for him. He felt like he was a bit of a slow starter against the beat self-admittedly, so I'm cool with that. He's recognizing he's self-aware. He wants to get rolling earlier and avoid falling behind and fighting it, out in front, getting the lead and going with it. I love the way Kattar deals with pressure. He still can be hit and backed up, but he's got good head movement. He sets up his counters very effectively, and for the most part, he's not getting flustered and this guy who's getting overrun by his opposition. He throws a beautiful left jab, and it comes up, his right hand is always chambered and ready to go. He does his best work in combination, doubling up that jab, ripping to the body. He's got a massive right hand that comes through very straight and long. He hurt Stephens with a late in the first round, which really changed the fight and got Stephens to start backing up. And just generally speaking, he's accurate and he's heavy when he lands. And again, that right hand that he put Stephens down to end the fight was just violence personified right there. Now, low kicks have been a bit of an issue for Kattar, and that's something Moicano had some success with, chopping away at his lead legs. Stephens landed some as well. We saw Kattar utilize some against Stephens and kind of turn the table a little bit in that fight. But ultimately, if Kattar allows Ige to pile up some low kicks, that could be a fight changer in a 5-round fight. One stat I kind of went searching, and I don't know how much it indicates, but Kattar so far in the UFC is 3-0 when he has the reach advantage, but just 2-2 when his opponents have an equal or greater reach. So that shows you how effectively he uses that length, and of course in this fight he does have the reach advantage. Now, I would say because of that, as much as I don't discredit Ige's striking, I think Ige's path to victory is his grappling. He's had the clear advantage over his first 4 UFC wins on the mat, and he's utilized that effectively. 6 takedowns to just 1. Makes his striking better, too. When the fighters are fighting with the concern of being taken down, he just creates opportunities and holes for him to land offense and just be overall the better overall striker as well because of his grappling. Against Barboza, he had some big moments on the mat against Barboza, similar to the Aguilar fight, which really helped him define success, especially, Aguilar he did well on the feet, but Barboza he was getting chewed up on the feet at times before getting the fight to the ground. But Kattar's takedown defense is good. It is very good, and I think it's going to be hard for Dan Ige to score takedowns in this matchup. And when you look at the last 2 fights, Bektic won the takedown battle, landing 3 takedowns to 1 against Ige. Ige's a good scrambler, but Bektic was able to get the takedowns, and that resulted in a split decision. Against Barboza, Ige attempted 4 takedowns. Barboza shut down 3. Had some success from top position when he got there. That was a split decision. So that kind of indicates how important these takedowns are for Dan Ige. Ige moves well and throws his strikes from a variety of angles, which I like if he's forced to strike here. But he tends to move forward, which opens him up for counters and puts him in a position for his opponent to land offense. He can't really fight from distance and pick away. He does his best work on the inside. He throws hooks in combinations, kind of wide hooks at times, and singles. He'll throw some single hook, wide-ranging hooks as well, which I think is going to be problematic against Kattar, who tends to be more linear and straight down the middle. And if his counter strikes come through, that's going to be problematic for Ige. The kicks were working for Ige against Barboza. At times he was landing them, and really that was impressive. They could be a key weapon against Kattar's boxing as well to slow him down. But when you look at how these two pair up, Kattar's the longer fighter. He hits harder. His punches are straighter. His takedown defense is sound. And I think landing counter strikes against Dan Ige as he tries to press forward are going to be key. I don't think Ige's going to get inside enough without taking too much damage. I think he needs to drop Kattar a couple of times throughout the fight or get some takedowns if he can't finish him. Ige tends to wear a lot of damage. I know Kattar does as well, but I think Ige's face tends to start to puff up and get bloody and just show the impact of the strikes. I think that's problematic over a 5-round fight against a big hitter like Calvin Kattar. And I think Kattar's just going to be too much for Dan Ige, and my prediction is Calvin Kattar to defeat Dan Ige by TKO. So those are my 4 main card predictions for UFC on ESPN 13, UFC Fight Island 1, whatever you want to refer to it as. All of my preliminary predictions and any updated main card fights will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. The bet packs will also be posted. UFC 251 is not transpired yet, so please check out those predictions as well. It should be a lot of fun with basically 3 events in 8 days. with another good event on Saturday. I will do my best to get everything posted as quickly as possible. Everything again at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. As I've said, and again, I continue to reiterate, I am winding down my channel, and on August 1st, that will be my final event that I enjoy, which will be exactly 10 years from my start. Thank you again for all the support and memories, all the kind words. I really appreciate all the things you guys have said. It actually makes it more difficult for a guy to say, hey, I'm taking a break or I'm walking away when I see all the nice things that people are saying. So again, thanks guys so much. And hey, we still got some fights left in us, so let's keep it rolling. Talk to you soon, guys. Take care.